Okay, question number 2. Articulating how you will address the needs of diverse culture, race, language, ability, gender, etc. in the classroom. And how will I differentiate? So for this question, I switch gears and I am using our text How to Differentiate by Carol Ann Tomlinson. And my first point of how I plan to address the needs of my diverse learners we talked about this all through our class, but utilizing learning profiles and learning the learning profiles of each of my students. So that includes recognizing their learning style and also their readiness, their intelligence preferences, their culture influence preferences, like how they communicate, and also gender influenced preferences as well. So also accepting that learning profiles are going to change over time, so that keeping up with your students' learning profiles is done through constant communication, giving your students the language and ability to communicate their preferences to you is also important. I also plan to address needs of my diverse learners through a lot of scaffolding. Even in my internship, I already have a lot of experience with scaffolds, but providing steps in assignments and in day-to-day lessons of helping students reach their goals is going to be a key piece. So also recognizing that learning isn't going to look the same for every student. Every student's going to have unique needs and is going to need unique, specifically designed instruction. Other strategies of reaching diverse learners that I read about are strategic student pairing. I think that honestly it depends on your activity. So you're going to want to use different pairings for different situations, obviously. Sometimes you're going to want to pair students of same ability together. That's going to be a good grouping for some lessons. Other lessons you're going to want maybe a peer mentoring pair of one student that it has maybe higher academic achievement and one student that needs additional support, and they can get that support from their peer. And then how do I plan to differentiate? Again, we talked about this a lot in class, but differentiating process, content, and environment. And you'd be proud of me. I've started doing this like in almost every lesson plan I write, because it actually is a lot easier. I think before I took this class, this is a little bunny trail, but I'm only at 4 minutes. Okay, bunny trail. I don't think I didn't think that I understood differentiation. And I know that sounds horrible coming from a SPED teacher, but I think I learn about these things and I don't always have the language to connect to it of what I'm doing, if that makes sense. And taking this class, I was like, oh, I can identify ways that I'm doing that, which made me happy. So differentiating process, content, and environment. So that looks like giving students options. Today I had, I hope this is okay. I was looking at this of statement of connecting to real world experiences. So I was thinking about my internship a lot, which is why it's all through my notes. But anyways, today, this is just fresh. This isn't even in my notes. But I was working with a student who, again, like I mentioned, has a struggle of motivation to work on their assignments, which results in them being behind on a lot of their assignments. So I was working one-on-one with the student to get them to where they needed to be. We were working on we do power paragraphs. Anyways, that's not important. The point is that I found myself being successful, giving them options at every point in the assignment. So I let them choose. This is a sixth grader, by the way, so it doesn't just work on little kids. This is a 12-year-old kid, and I let them choose which highlighter color they wanted to use. They chose blue. This student also gets really intimidated by reading aloud, not because they are a struggling reader, they're actually a very good reader. I think it has more to do with the environment of people around, and also they get overwhelmed seeing a lot of text in one place. But the student also tends to have behavioral outbursts, so I kind of have to push when I can and time that right. So I did get them to read the second half, but I started out giving them the option, would you like to read this article out loud, or would you like me to read this article out loud and you take notes? So they opted for it. They would like to take notes. So we were reading this article together, and every once in a while we had to stop and we had to highlight key points that we could write about in our paragraph. By the end, I mentioned we switched gears and I highlighted parts of the article that we could talk about, and they finished reading the article. And then together we wrote up our basically like a visual organizer of topics that we're going to talk about in the paragraph. So we have our claim, and we have our supporting argument, and our evidence and examples. So anyways, okay, you didn't need to know all that, I'm sorry. But I've just found myself implementing it in my day-to-day teaching, which I find helpful. So process, I mentioned. Environment is getting students up and moving, I think, is important. That's something I want to work on in my internship. I see it a lot in the general education math class. He does these really awesome activities, and he gets students up, and there's this whole space in the back of the classroom, because the classrooms are like a weird rectangle. So there's like, half of the class is like in the first half of the classroom, and then there's kind of an emptier space. But anyways, he uses that for space to move around. So students get up and they do these fun whiteboard activities, and they do a lot of like partner or teamwork activities, which are great for just getting students up and moving. We have a lot of kids, especially in the morning, that are tired, that need to be active and moving around. I mean, this is middle school, but they're also, they're still little, and they need to get woken up in the morning. And okay, I'm gonna go ahead and I mentioned how I'm gonna differentiate. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move to my third question.